Hey guys, this time we are easing into silk footwear and walking softly through a society where appearing somewhat lifeless was viewed as stunningly attractive. You open your eyes to the dim glow of a Victorian dawn, and the first sensation is your face, stiff and tight. You've been sleeping with your head propped up, not for comfort, but to prevent blood from settling too heavily in your cheeks. A flushed complexion is unseemly. It suggests effort. It implies vitality. And here, beauty dances with frailty. You settle at your small dressing table, cold beneath your fingertips. Spread before you is the usual collection. A porcelain jar of rice powder, a container of vinegar-soaked fabric, and something in a cobalt bottle that smells faintly metallic. You begin with the vinegar. Pat, pat, pat. The sting is just sharp enough to confirm it's effective. The acid gently erodes your skin's outer layer, that rosy flush that once suggested health. Unthinkable. Then comes the white lead powder. You hesitate, examining yourself in the glass. Without it, your face reveals too much. Subtle freckles from a single afternoon in the garden. The faint shadow beneath your eyes from restless sleep. You apply the powder liberally to your face, throat, even your ears. A respectable woman doesn't display the uneven warmth of living flesh. She must resemble marble, ideally frozen. You think of poor Miss Eliza's cautionary story, who foolishly permitted a tan to darken her nose during a week at Bath, rendering her unmarriageable. The gossip spread as though she'd admitted to factory work. That won't be your fate. You have 2 potential suitors waiting and a mother who watches your every wardrobe selection like a predator. You lift the rouge, then set it aside. Too early. Rouge carries implications. Too much and you'll be mistaken for a stage performer, or even worse, someone French. Your fingers drift instead to another compact, crushed geranium petals. A subtler hint of colour, just sufficient to prevent people from assuming you're tubercular. Your governess once mentioned the Duchess of Devonshire possessed such pallor she appeared never to have taken a complete breath. You recall thinking how melancholy that seemed, but now you comprehend. There's strength in appearing as though you might collapse momentarily. It draws others nearer. They wish to shield you, admire you, claim you, and so you continue. Actually, a light application here, a touch of something acrid beneath the eyes to reduce the redness. A fine spray of rose water to set everything, though it won't endure. It never persists. The urban air is harsh, thick with smoke and perspiration and stray cinders from chimneys. But right now, you are flawless. Across the way, you notice your neighbour leaning from her window, sunshine illuminating her skin, bronze and vibrant. You cringe. She'll suffer for that in whispers. A tan indicates one of 2 possibilities. You labour with your hands or you possess no dignity. Either option means social death. You sometimes wonder what your skin would appear like if you abandoned all this, allowed the sun to touch your nose, let the wind bring genuine colour to your cheeks, let yourself radiate, but that notion expires as swiftly as it arrived. Radiance is for flames. You're meant for gaslight. And there it appears again, the sickly porcelain visage in the mirror. Delicate, ethereal, precisely correct. Your mother taps once before entering. Always once, always without pausing. She voices nothing about your face, but scrutinizes it with tactical precision. Too much powder, and she'll inform you that you appear dramatic. Too little, and she'll claim you've been careless with your standards. But today she inclines her head. Once, sanctioned, you release your breath as though you've survived a wordless examination. Downstairs the morning meal awaits, but you lack appetite. The vinegar on your skin has created a sour aftertaste in your throat. You sip lukewarm tea instead. No cream, no sweetener, just the mild acid descending like ceremony. Across the surface, your sister, younger yet somehow older, already paler, already more celebrated, sits ramrod straight, her lips a tranquil, firm line. You covet her discipline. She doesn't even react at the sight of her egg. Your father scans the newspaper and doesn't acknowledge either of you. He needn't. Your beauty isn't intended for him. It's for society. He wishes to marry you off. Into the parlour, the coach, the ballroom. You're shaped not to satisfy yourselves, but to endure. Later that afternoon, you stop by the apothecary. The bell chimes above the entrance, and the atmosphere carries scents of camphor and chalk. On the counter rest elegant glass containers labelled in meticulous handwriting: white mercury ointment, arsenical complexion tablets, and one especially enigmatic product, Dr. Campbell's Pearl Pills, for beautifying the complexion. You waver, then select the tablets. They claim one tablet daily prevents blemishes. They omit mentioning the eventual consequences: shaking, exhaustion, perhaps the gradual deterioration of your gums. But nobody wishes to consider that. The apothecary packages it tidily in paper and cord, offers you a rehearsed smile. He's witnessed girls like you arrive and depart, pursuing alabaster fantasies. He doesn't condemn. Arsenic is profitable. Back home, you position yourself near the window and browse through a fashion illustration from the ladies' publication. The sketches display women with impossibly flawless skin, gazes lowered, mouths shut. They appear submissive, perfect, scarcely breathing. You study one for a spell and question whether she appears that way by choice or because she never possessed another alternative. The sun starts to descend, and with it the shadows mellow. This is your hour. Gaslight hour, the time when your pale visage glows best, illuminated not by daylight but by wavering golden deception. You rotate slightly toward the glass, appreciating how the powder captures the low amber luminescence just adequately to obscure the imperfections, not sufficiently to expose the construction. Your servant enters with the evening dress, silver and purple, selected not to contrast your complexion but to emphasize its deathly tranquility. You enter it like battle gear. Later tonight at the assembly room, gentlemen will bow, ladies will evaluate, and someone will murmur that you resemble a porcelain celestial being. You'll smile slightly, not enough to reveal teeth. That would be excessive. The powder irritates faintly now, but you resist scratching. You've mastered stillness. That's integral to the appearance. Delicate, remote, perfect. And within, you're not completely certain where your flesh concludes and the powder commences. You hold your breath as the servant tightens the laces once more. That's the third adjustment this morning. Your hands grip the edge of the bedpost, knuckles blanched. She's skilled, silent, methodical, but you still sense your ribs compressing inward like paper accordions. You've performed this so frequently you've memorized the phases. Inhale, steady, tighten, squeeze, acknowledge. The corset groans softly, a sinister little complaint that feels animated against your spine. And then, snap, the clasp secures. You expel your breath in shallow portions, not gasps. No space for gasps. The corset has confiscated your lungs as well. It's not merely fashion, it's your protection, your costume, your emblem of virtue and control. A minuscule waist represents a minuscule appetite, a modest presence, a reserved existence. Victorian gentlemen don't simply desire a beautiful woman. They desire a self-contained one, compressed, collected, hushed. You advance toward the mirror. You can scarcely walk, not because it's excessively tight, though it is, but because your gait has been restricted. Your hips are imprisoned in position. Your knees must float, not pound. It enforces grace, like a swan that's been secured to the planks. Your waist today measures 18 inches. Last season it measured 20. You're advancing. Somewhere in the residence, your aunt still boasts about her 16-inch corset during her courtship years. She wore it so restrictively for so extended that her lower ribs merged. Her waist remained diminutive even after bearing children, though nobody mentions the 3 losses in between. You recall once, as a youngster, discovering one of her ancient corsets in a chest. It resembled an artifact from a torture exhibition. The boning had twisted into peculiar curves, and there were pale rust marks along the seams. "Perspiration," someone murmured. "Or blood." Still, there's no terror in your chest as you wear your only compression, exquisite, agonizing compression. It embraces you like approval, like your mother's satisfied silence, like society's acceptance. You've caught rumours of the rational dress movement, women in London advocating for looser garments, physical freedom even, heaven forbid, trousers. You contemplate them occasionally when the pain in your ribs becomes acute, but then you observe your silhouette and notice the bell-shaped contour, the graceful sweep from chest to cinched waist to expanded skirt, and you feel commanding. Absurd, isn't it? You're physically diminished, practically breathless. But when the corset shapes you precisely, people regard you like your enchantment. They presume you're innocent, fragile, worth safeguarding or claiming. That's the deception. Beauty in this realm isn't solely about attraction, it's about compliance. The corset instructs you early how to withstand, to suffer silently, to smile when your stomach contorts, to drift when your feet ache. It commences with your waist, but it concludes in your consciousness. And you, like all the other young women at the ball tonight, will curtsy so profoundly your vision hazes. Not because you're light-headed, though you are, but because that's what the most refined beauty performs. She bends until the chamber forgets she's suffering. The carriage journey to the assembly room disturbs you more than customary tonight. Every jolt in the cobblestone street transmits a tremor through your backbone, compressed firmly against the corset's inflexible steel supports. You're not solitary. Your sister grimaces with each shock too, her own torso secured into a rigid pillar of whalebone and dignity. You're both positioned like porcelain figurines, hands clasped, spines impossibly erect. Speaking is discretionary, movement discouraged. The corset maintains you in perpetual dialogue with your own body, a reminder not to hunch, not to sprawl, not to exist too audibly. At the hall, attendants assist you down the stairs. You nod courteously but don't smile. It's too draining, and your midsection is secured so firmly that even chuckling would risk hiccups or worse, unladylike wheezing. The final thing you desire is to be observed panting beneath your bodice like an exhausted mare. Inside, the atmosphere is dense with fragrance and expectation. Young women drift like mechanical dancers, their waists impossibly narrow beneath silks, their eyes wide but cautious. Everyone's performing the same silent contest. Who can appear the most graceful while secretly struggling for air? You glimpse Lady Pembroke by the refreshment station. She's displaying the newest corset fashion, the swan waist, with additional boning that curves in directly below the ribs. It appears exquisite. It also appears as though she hasn't consumed anything in days. But nobody observes that. They're too occupied marvelling at her silhouette, that flawless S-curve that broadcasts discipline and lineage. A gentleman approaches you and bows. "May I request this dance?" You nod. The waltz commences and your body recalls the restrictions. You cannot bend, you cannot rotate, so you drift like a reed in calm water. It's refined from a distance. Up close, you're tallying each step like a supplication, hoping your stays maintain and your breath doesn't falter too severely. Your partner praises your bearing. You wish to laugh. He doesn't realise you've been training for this bearing since you were 12. That your governess would secure a rod to your spine and make you rehearse with a teacup balanced on your crown. That your waist was gauged weekly like a prized racehorse recorded on paper, assessed by inches, not compassion. He doesn't perceive the bruises on your sides or the small wound from yesterday's boning pressure. And why should he? That's not included in the costume. Pain, after all, is indecorous. Later, back in the changing room, you unfasten the clasp and release a breath so profound it feels like a secret emerging. You press your fingers into your waist. There's an impression so defined it could collect rainwater. You touch it again, not with revulsion, but satisfaction. You've accomplished it. Tomorrow you'll be tender. You might even cough up a little blood again, like you did last spring. But tonight your waist was observed, admired, evaluated by glances, and deemed acceptable. In this realm that signifies everything, you awaken before the servant does. Not because of the sun, which barely penetrates through the heavy damask draperies, but because of the discomfort in your scalp. You've slept with your hair plaited tightly and secured in coils to prevent tangling, a style that permits no movement, no fantasies of comfort. Hair is not simply hair, it's your crown, your virtue, your destiny. And yours must be lengthy, abundant and dark, ideally brushed 100 strokes each evening. That's what the etiquette manuals recommend anyway. You once attempted to tally each stroke aloud but lost count somewhere around 60 when your arm started to burn. Still, the endeavour matters. A young woman with lustrous hair possesses self-discipline. A young woman with limp or unruly locks, well, she must be negligent with more than just her appearance. You sit at the dressing table and begin the morning ceremony. Release, unwind, comb. You do it slowly, carefully. One incorrect pull and you'll extract strands. Hair loss is mortifying. It's discussed behind gloves, the variety of gossip that destroys prospects. Your brush is constructed of boar bristles. It smells faintly of lavender and oil. Not from the product, because genuine hair oil is disapproved of as foreign, but from the sachet your servant places into your drawer to maintain freshness. A clever accommodation. Victorian standards dictate your hair must extend to your waist by the time you're 16, and yours did, barely. It's chestnut brown in daylight, nearly black at twilight. You once read in a ladies' column that blonde hair was preferred in paintings, but too juvenile in reality. Red hair was inferior, labelled vulgar, unless it belonged to a duchess or a legend. Still brushing, you remember the account of Miss Althea, who severed her hair in mourning after her betrothed perished in a horse accident. She presented the braid to his mother as a memento. The scandal wasn't that she grieved, it was that she dared appear in society with hair above her shoulders. For a year, nobody invited her anywhere. A short-haired woman was unreliable, too progressive, too emotional, too exposed. You divide your hair down the centre as fashion requires. Centre parts are solemn, modest. Side parts suggest whimsy, which might be interpreted as flirtation. And you cannot afford that. Not with suitors circling like moths, and your mother monitoring your every gesture. Once divided, your servant helps plait it loosely into 2 long ropes. You'll coil them into a bun later, but for now you let them dangle. You examine yourself in the mirror. You appear older with your hair loose. There's something almost startling about witnessing your own hair unbound. It feels intimate, improper, like displaying your ankles before breakfast. Nobody tells you this, but you've learned it yourself. Beauty in this realm is half what they witness and half what you conceal. And your hair. It must be everywhere and nowhere, simultaneously. Always flawless, never touched, unless you're dying or getting married. Midday brings preparations for your portrait session, an oil commission your aunt has insisted on commissioning for your 17th birthday. It's an honour, she claims, a milestone. But truly, it's a variety of advertisement. Your future husband's first impression might be through brushstrokes. The painter arrives with a trunk of accessories, velvet wraps, imitation pearls, a small harp. But none of that matters as much as your hair. He stands behind his easel, observing you with narrowed eyes and a slight frown. Hair loose, he instructs. Release it, more natural. Your heart leaps. You glance at your chaperone, and she nods, just barely. For art, exceptions are permitted, but it still feels improper. You slowly undo the braids, letting them unravel like a secret. The weight of your own hair surprises you. It cascades past your waist, tickling your elbows, warm against your back. It smells like lavender and starch and maybe something wilder. you're suddenly conscious of how alive you feel. The artist hums as he works. Excellent sheen, fine texture. He speaks of you like a vase. You sit perfectly motionless, but your mind wanders to the young women who never reached portrait age. You heard once of a housemaid who had hair as long as her skirt. She was dismissed for enticing the master's son, though nobody ever questioned what the son did. They claim she cut her braid off with sewing scissors and sold it to a wig maker for less than a guinea. You blink back. In the studio, the painter leans forward and lifts a strand of your hair, not roughly, but without asking. You flinch, and he chuckles. Don't worry, miss, it's your finest feature. That night you wonder if he's correct, if your hair is your greatest asset, not your intelligence, which you keep folded under silence, not your music, which you're only permitted to play during supper. Just this, these long, disciplined strands, the colour of burnt chestnut and candlelight, and yet you think there's something absurdly powerful about it. Your hair moves when you cannot. It brushes your arms when nobody else is permitted to. It remembers your childhood, your prayers, your fears. You've shed tears into it, hidden behind it. Let it carry your secrets like a veil. Maybe that's why you care for it so religiously. Because in a realm that tells you to shrink, bind, hush, and comply, your hair is the one thing that still grows. You're seated at tea with your gloves on because it's not yet acceptable to bare your fingers in polite company, not even when holding a teacup. The chamber is pleasant. Soft gaslight flickering on porcelain, a hint of orange peel in the scones, and the quiet clink of silverware as someone spoons sugar into a guest cup. You laugh lightly at a joke from Lady Whitmore's niece, though you're not certain you understood it. Then it occurs. One of the young women, a newcomer from the north, smiles a wide-open smile. You catch it only for an instant, but it's too late. Her teeth are white, brilliantly so. Everyone witnesses it. Lady Whitmore blinks. The chamber pauses. It's subtle, but it's genuine. That variety of smile is inappropriate. Toothiness is theatrical, unladylike, questionable. You sip your tea slowly and lower your eyes. You can sense her blushing beside you, uncertain of what she's done. You've been trained superior. You've mastered the close-lipped smile, the demure glance, the subtle lift at the corners of your mouth that communicates, I'm amused, but not excessively. Showing too many teeth implies desire, or worse, American tendencies. They claim those women grin like actresses and wear rouge before noon. You shiver at the notion. In Victorian England, the ideal mouth is modest, unassuming and closed. The lips must be soft in colour, perhaps tinged with beeswax, but nothing bright. Rouge on the mouth is for the stage. Lipstick. True lipstick is scandalous. Only the French indulge in such vulgarity, and even they have the decency to maintain it behind drawn curtains. Your governess used to tell you a tale of a young woman who laughed too loud at a wedding and cracked the veneer on her front tooth. She never married. Nobody wanted to kiss a young woman whose mouth appeared eager to bite. Since then, you've learned laughter must be quiet, lips must be restrained, and if your teeth are white, you'd best be concealing them. You excuse yourself and step into the powder room. Inside, a gilded mirror reflects your face in candlelight. You inspect your own teeth briefly. Not too white, thank goodness. You chew on a clove just in case. The bitterness stings your tongue but dulls the breath. Back in the sitting room, conversation resumes as if nothing occurred. The young woman with a gleaming smile now sips her tea in silence. She's learned. You once read in a journal that in ancient times women blackened their teeth to signify virtue and maturity. Strange how far we've progressed, and yet how similar it still is. Whiteness, brightness, too vivid, too bold, must be tempered. Beauty in your realm walks a narrow line between visible and veiled. Later, on the carriage journey home, your mother leans over and whispers, "You carried yourself well today." It's her highest compliment. You nod politely and hide your own smile behind a lace-trimmed handkerchief, not because your teeth are too white, but because showing joy in public is still something that must be managed. That evening, you linger at your writing desk, quill in hand, thinking of the young woman with a bright smile. Her face keeps drifting into your mind like a stubborn perfume. There was something so alive in that expression, so unsupervised. You wonder if she feels ashamed now or free. You glance at the small silver mirror beside your ink pot. It's warped slightly at the edges, which softens everything into a dreamy blur. Your mouth appears correct here. Small, pale, composed the way it should. You recall the home remedy your aunt once passed on, spoken in a hushed tone like a scandalous secret. A rinse of lemon juice and baking soda to brighten teeth, just a little, but only once a month and never before a ball. Too much and they'd shine. Shine invites comment. Comment invites speculation. There are dentists, of course, but few women admit to visiting them. Dentistry is associated with pain, blood, men shouting in back alleys. Besides, many women would rather endure a cavity than risk being seen in public with a swollen cheek or missing molar. You'd heard once of a lady who had a tooth removed and wore a handkerchief across her face for a week, pretending she had neuralgia. To have perfect teeth naturally is rare. To admit to trying for them artificially, social suicide. Your friend Clara once confessed to using charcoal to polish her molars. It worked until it didn't. The enamel wore away, and now she covers her mouth every time she speaks. She's practically mastered the art of smiling without moving her lips. It's a dance, all of you know. How to tilt your head just so, how to laugh behind a fan, how to show delight without showing teeth. And yet you cannot stop wondering. What if smiling openly wasn't dangerous? What if you could bare your teeth and not your shame? But then you hear your mother's voice downstairs, calling for you to fetch your embroidery. The daydream fades. You fold the thought away, like a letter you'll never send. In the drawing room, your father looks up from the paper. "Did you see the new governess on Pemberley Street?" he asks. She's got a rather American grin. Everyone chuckles. You do too, politely. But inside, something twists. You don't hate your smile, you've just been taught to distrust it. And so, as the chamber fills with lamplight and evening pleasantries, you sit perfectly still, mouth softened, lips closed. You're no fool. Your face is still your fortune, and in this economy, fortune doesn't flash its teeth. The sun is shining today, really shining, that soft golden warmth that makes you want to throw open the windows and let everything, dust, breeze, life, come spilling in. But you don't. Instead, you pull the curtains tighter. There's nothing more damning to a Victorian woman's beauty than a tan. You stand in the parlour, adjusting your gloves, already feeling the sticky promise of summer on your skin. You check your reflection in the hall mirror, just to be sure. No colour yet, no warmth across the bridge of your nose. Good. You've been cautious. Outside, workers move through the grounds in thin sleeves, sleeves pushed up, faces wet with heat. Their skin is tanned and spotted from real work. It's a look that announces I labour, a look you can never possess. You're not meant to appear as though you've ever handled earth, even if you sometimes imagine racing barefoot through the garden just to feel something. There are whispers, quiet ones, of girls who allowed the sun near them and were confused for common folk. Your parasol rests by the entrance, the finest silk stretched across ivory-coloured ribs. It's more than mere shade, it's defence against gossip. You grip it like a blade as you venture outside. The street is active. Carriages thunder by and you can detect the harsh call of a vendor somewhere down the road. The air carries horses and lilac and something faintly sugary. Perhaps the baker's helper is scorching sugar again. You hold your parasol upward, positioning it precisely, observing the light dance across the lace. A neighbour gestures. You acknowledge but don't grin. Grinning too much might attract notice, and notice invites examination. The sun slips around the rim of your parasol, heating your face. You recoil slightly and rotate your head. You've learned of girls applying vinegar-dampened fabric to their flesh after unintended sun contact, frantic to undo the harm. One even attempted lemon extract combined with milk. It left her skin crimson and acid-smelling, and she remained indoors for a week, declaring sickness. You once caught a young woman in Bath declare she'd sooner be plain than bronzed. Everyone chuckled. Nobody objected, and so you advance rapidly, staying to the covered portion of the street. You'd sooner perspire beneath 3 layers of underskirt than gamble a single spot. Spots are endearing on youngsters, unfortunate on grown-ups, and inexcusable on women who desire to wed well. You arrive at the seamstress's establishment and enter with gratitude. The inside is dim and chilled, and the faint aroma of cotton and lavender drifts in the air. Madam glances up, then instantly examines your face, not for feeling, but for shade, hue. She's verifying you've remained fair, I observe, she remarks with approval. Beautiful. You whisper your appreciation. It feels odd to be celebrated for absence, for missing pigment, for appearing like you've been kept in a chest, but that's the measure: fragile, indoor, untouched by existence. You're China, remember, and China doesn't bask. Back at the house, you stand beside the upper window just beyond the drape, observing the afternoon sun move across the roofs. Light plays on the stacks and pours across the garden barrier where the vines climb in twisted patterns. You glimpse your image in the pane, fair brow, fairer face, and that slight gloss of perspiration you're not meant to recognise. You dab it softly with a linen cloth. Your servant arrives holding a small container of powdered rice flour. For your throat, she murmurs quietly. You agree. Even the chest must stay fair, though it seldom encounters the sun. For evening attire, particularly those with low necklines, you must apply carefully. No gleam, no colour, no suggestion that your body holds blood. You've been informed that aristocratic women of ages past once powdered their shoulders and limbs too. It renders them appearing colder, more majestic, more like something that exists in a portrait. You settle at the table and allow her to dust your collarbones, the peaks of your shoulders, the hollow of your throat. It tingles, and you press the inside of your mouth to prevent giggling. Giggling makes the chest expand and contract too noticeably, another thing to control. She applies the powder with gentle circular movements. You spot that one of your freckles has reappeared, barely visible, just beneath the clavicle. You recall the afternoon it surfaced, an hour lingered too long beside the fountain, reading a story you weren't meant to treasure. You conceal it swiftly at dinner that night. Your aunt appears without warning, bringing with her a relative you scarcely recognise, and a heap of judgment wrapped in lace. She examines you like one might examine a fruit, lightly pressing for flaws. When her gaze lands on your arms, exposed in your evening dress, she signals slightly. I do respect a girl who safeguards her skin, she states. No marks, no common tan. You acknowledge her, even though the commendation makes your belly clench. You recall hearing about women in India who bronze their skin deliberately. It's mentioned with a partial murmur, partial mockery, in your social sphere. Picture that, someone once remarked, deciding to resemble a labourer. But you question, was it a decision or just a separate kind of pressure? The discussion shifts to journeys, and you listen silently. Italy, Egypt, Ceylon. Locations where the light is amber and skin absorbs it like nectar. Locations you'll probably never witness unless you wed into a family with a suitable yacht and a forward-thinking attitude. Even then, you'd need to bundle twice the quantity of coverings. As the meal concludes, you look down at your hands, gloved naturally. You haven't witnessed the reverse of your own hand in brightness for months. It strikes you that your skin is something you preserve but seldom occupy. Later, as you ready for sleep, you cleanse your face with rose liquid and milk. The scent is pleasant, soothing. You examine the mirror one final moment before the lamp is dimmed. Still fair, still flawless. And yet you feel strangely transparent. Because to be valued here, you must appear like you scarcely exist. You've always understood your eyes were too common, not tempest grey like your relatives or that profound blue-tone poets worship. Yours are brown, simple, constant, unremarkable. At least that's what your teacher once suggested when she stated, "There's nothing faulty with brown, dear. It's genuine, so you master the deception." This morning your servant brings the small blue bottle from the compartment, wrapped in fabric like a forbidden secret. She doesn't need to inquire. You signal once and she removes the cap. Belladonna drops 2 drops in each eye. You lean your head backward and they descend, searing, stinging, filling your sight with moisture. But you remain motionless. The discomfort means it's functioning. Within moments, your pupils expand, consuming your irises into black silk pools. The result is unmistakable, enigmatic, alluring, almost heated. The very appearance men compose verses about, if not entirely from observation, then at least from fantasy. Your mother relies on them. She claims they give a woman the appearance of passionate anguish. Apparently that's fashionable. You blink swiftly, attempting not to smudge the ash you've just placed on your lashes. The ash was collected from last night's candle tip, then combined with a touch of goose grease to secure it in position. You stroke it on with a tiny rod carved from peach timber, blackening your lashes until they bend like insect legs. It's not officially cosmetics. No lady would confess to colouring her face, but it's sufficient to make your eyes seem wider, richer, more sorrowful. You press a bit beneath the lower rim to imitate darkness, as if you've been awake all night with concern. There's a skill to it, just the proper amount of blur to indicate distress, but not disease. You're meant to appear fragile, not expiring. Your aunt once claimed men develop affection for eyes that plead for salvation. You consider that sometimes, about how many girls are busy weakening themselves into casualties just to be noticed. You detect your younger sister rehearsing piano below. She's humming gently, off-pitch. She doesn't employ the drops, not yet. She still trusts her own features. Adequate. You remember when you did too. But in this existence, honesty gains you nothing. A woman must be half authentic, half illusion. And your eyes, they're not passages to the spirit. They're lure. By the moment you arrive at the luncheon, your sight is somewhat clouded, Belladonna's consequence. Everything surrounding you appears a bit too brilliant, the borders glowing as if the world's been soaked in milk. It renders the space feel otherworldly, which isn't completely disagreeable except for the pain forming just above your right forehead. Still, your eyes are spectacular. The other girls observe. You intercept their stares, their tiny modifications, the way one subtly reaches for her own lashes. Another blinks, too rapid, self-aware. You don't grin, but you sense it. You've triumphed today's quiet competition. The gentlemen, naturally, are unaware to the struggle. One praises your eyes and you whisper something about inadequate rest and excessive reading. He grins, enchanted by the fantasy of cleverness and delicacy combined into one. You drink water, cautious not to blink excessively. The drops make your eyes broad, water periodically, and you have to touch at the edges carefully. Belladonna is merciless. Too many applications and you threaten lasting harm, damaged sight, shaking, even insanity. But beauty has always walked alongside with peril, like a dance companion who guides just a bit too firmly. At the distant end of the table, you recognise Lady Frances is cooling herself. Her lashes are heavy with ash, but one has streaked slightly, creating a mark near her forehead. Nobody informs her that's the harshest part of this contest. You're assessed in quiet. After lunch, you withdraw to the sitting room, where the windows have been partially closed, against the sun. A girl with blonde hair attempts to recite aloud from Tennyson, but you're too preoccupied by your own image in the tea-serving dish. Your pupils are still broad, your lashes forming perfect darkness on your face. You picture what it would be like to pass a day without changing your face. No drops, no ash, no softening of what you truly are. You wonder if anyone would recognize, or worse, if they wouldn't. Later, alone in your chamber, you recline and hold a cool fabric over your brow. The pain is sharper now. Your eyes are parched, your forehead throbbing. You'll decline the evening stroll, mention you're exhausted. It's not completely false. Your servant enters silently and returns the belladonna bottle to its compartment. You detect the soft tap of glass against timber, a familiar noise, reassuring in a peculiar way, because this is the pattern. You injure yourself to be desired, obscure your sight to be observed, toxin your eyes to be regarded. And the worst aspect? You've begun to accept they're lovelier this way. The sitting room is soaked in a gentle radiance, the kind of warm, dancing light that gas lamps are celebrated for. Not candlelight, not daylight. Gaslight, that unusual middle kind of brightness that makes everyone appear just a bit more celestial, a bit less actual. You're positioned near the hearth, your face tilted just so. It's a choreography you've practiced, maintaining one face turned toward the fixture, allowing the light sweep across your powdered skin like cream over tea. In this existence, gaslight isn't just atmosphere, it's beauty's best ally. A lady once murmured that gaslight was created by the demon to trick men into wedding the incorrect women. Everything appears flawless by gaslight, she stated, tasting her sherry. Even me. You comprehended what she intended. Gaslight smooths your pores, erases your freckles, and grants your skin a radiance you could never accomplish in brightness. It conceals the irregular, the too daring, the insufficient. Under gaslight, colour appears like a genuine blush. Powder transforms to moisture. Even weary eyes seem cryptic, which is why society prefers evening gatherings. You peer across the space at your competitor, Miss Lillian Greaves, daughter of the mayor. In brightness, she's too rosy, too spotted, too boisterous. But here, she's nearly divine. Her pale emerald dress glimmers with every inhalation. Her skin seems glowing. You nearly resent her, nearly. The gentlemen observe too. They constantly do. They remark on brilliance and fine shading, as if the women facing them were canvas paintings instead of individuals. You ponder how many have ever witnessed their own spouses in complete morning sun. Fewer than you'd estimate. You discovered long ago never to position too near to a gaslight, especially not directly underneath exposes everything. The patchy powder on your chin, the weak shadow of a mark beneath your ear. The method is to stay near it, not under it. Let the boundary of the radiance discover you. Let it admire you tenderly. There are girls who don't grasp this and step straight into the light like insects. You've observed them with silent sympathy. They illuminate too harshly, all forehead and moisture and obvious struggle. You've mastered to be moonlight, not fire. Even your gowns are selected with gaslight in consideration. Some materials reflect too intensely and make you appear crude. Others absorb the light just sufficiently. Tonight's dress is a deep plum silk. It produces shadows at your middle and gentleness at your collarbone. In brightness it appears almost bland, but tonight it's flawless. A gentleman nears you, rotate your head just sufficient to capture the best perspective. He tells you that you appear positively glowing. You grin, small, silent, proper. The light sparkles off your earring. You can almost witness your image in his pupils, wide with appreciation and a little bewilderment. He doesn't understand why he discovers you beautiful. You do. It's the gaslight. The music has begun, gentle strings floating from the distant end of the sitting room. Couples start to match off, skirts swishing like murmurs, shoes barely touching the glossed floor. You stay positioned for a moment, further, relishing the dancing halo around everything. Gaslight transforms even the most ordinary mood movements into verse. Your servant had buffed your boots earlier, not that anyone would witness them distinctly, but she stated it mattered. "They'll capture the light as you step," she'd murmured, "just sufficient to make your movements feel like hovering." She was accurate. You float. When the lighting is correct, you accept your partner's hand. He carries tobacco and cologne, a little too strong, but acceptable under the conditions. As you progress through the waltz, the light pursues you like a secret worshipper. You understand how to move through its sections, lower into shadow, then surface radiant. It's like dancing with a phantom. That compliments you. He inclines in and states, "I never noticed how remarkable your eyes are." Naturally, he didn't. In brightness, they're an ordinary brown, but tonight, with the gaslight caressing them just so, they're amber, maybe even honey. You grin faintly and state nothing. Around the space, other girls luxuriate in their own golden fantasies. Everyone is a bit more elegant, a bit more enigmatic. The flaws, the moisture, the marks from corsets, all vanished under this forgiving shimmer. But not everything is flawless. You capture a view of poor Margaret Ellison beneath one of the wall fixtures. She wandered too near again. Her powder has hardened slightly at the chin, and the gaslight reveals it brutally. You witness the moment her assurance wavers, her shoulders tense, and she moves back into shadow, moistening her lips anxiously. You've been her once. It only requires one severe flicker of light to remind you that your beauty is constructed on delicate deceptions. The dance finishes and your partner bows. You curtsy, breath limited, eyes directed down, knowing completely your profile is superior from this perspective. You progress toward the refreshment table, evading the fixture. That one too, harsh. The one by the piano, though, that's the one that renders your skin appear like milk heated by candlelight. As you taste watered wine from a crystal goblet, a friend inclines over and whispers, "You constantly appear so peaceful in the evening." You acknowledge her. You don't inform her about the experimentation and failure, the numerous hours testing materials, perspectives, expressions in your own dressing mirror. You don't inform her about the way your neck hurts from maintaining your chin at the exact complementary angle. You don't inform her about the gaslight's deceptions because sometimes you favour them. There's security in this radiance. It's a bit dishonest, yes, but it allows you to accept for just a few hours that you genuinely are this beautiful, that you were created this way, that it isn't all powder and control and rehearsal, and maybe beneath the correct fixture, with just the correct shadows, even the deception becomes something resembling truth. You're in the pharmacy again. The shelves extend tall and slim like dusty volumes, each bottle precisely labelled in script, too refined for what's contained. Rose liquid, mercury, ammonia, extract of belladonna. Everything you require to construct a face the world will cherish while your body silently objects beneath it. You're not here for anything spectacular, just a replacement of your arsenic complexion tablets. They're placed behind the counter naturally, not exhibited, too hazardous, too evident. But the pharmacist recognises you. He provides a small courteous smile, then retrieves a blue box from the drawer and covers it in brown paper. He doesn't pose questions. You don't provide responses. Arsenic in moderation is marvellous. The tablets guarantee clearer skin, a glowing radiance, fewer marks. Some claim they diminish swelling under the eyes. Others claim they make your irises lighter. You don't worry about the science or the dangers. You worry that they function. You worry that your image doesn't expose you. Back at the house, you unwrap the paper with attention. The tablets are pale, powdery, almost tasteless. You position one on your tongue and allow it to melt slowly. It tastes like medicine attempting to be nothing. Your lips feel deadened afterward, a positive indication. You initially attempted them when you were 15. Your aunt provided you one before a summer ceremony. "Only one," she cautioned. "Any more, and you'll radiate like a cadaver." You hadn't realised then how near to the truth that was. There are other mixtures too, some inferior. Women consume tonics with mercury to eliminate spots. They apply ammonia behind their ears to make the skin sting pink and living. One girl you recognised painted her face with crushed insects. She claimed the irritation it produced gave her a natural blush. It's not just the products, it's the quiet. Nobody admits what they're employing. They just emerge at the opera or the dinner table radiating like saints and grin as if it's all genuine, as if their beauty emerges from within. You used to question how they achieved it. Now you understand. There's a weak tremor in your left hand. Sometimes it began 2 months ago. You convince yourself it's nothing. You attribute the weather or your corset. But part of you realizes better. Still, you won't cease. You cannot. Because if you abandon the tablets, what occurs next? Your skin will change, your face will discolour, the murmurs will begin. She's declining. She's gone rough. How unfortunate. And that's inferior than a little poison. Because in your existence, beauty is currency, and you'd sooner sacrifice health than exhaust worth. You place the tablet box beneath your gloves and handkerchiefs in your top drawer, concealed but not distant. You always want them near should a poor complexion ruin everything, an unexpected social call, a rival you need to eclipse. The tiny container is running low, you must replace it soon. Below, your mother frets over trim selections, having a quiet discussion with the dressmaker about which neck shape best complements your slender throat. Her features are too fine, she insists, and her jawline too angular. We mustn't highlight that area. You feign indifference, having perfected the art of a mouth-closed smile and of listening without reaction. During the meal, you are bathed in the muted light of the main lamp. A gentleman visiting from out of town compliments your skin, calling it flawless porcelain. You offer a small acknowledgement and slowly consume your soup with impeccable form, your pulse racing not from his praise, but from the pill you ingested an hour earlier. The room wobbles slightly as you get up, just for a moment. You quickly steady yourself, placing one hand against the intricate wooden cabinet. No one seems to notice, or if they do, they are too mannered to mention it. This faintness has become routine, as normal as your cinched waist, the garment cords, or your dusting powders. Back in your private quarters that evening, you release your hair and gently rub your forehead. The pounding ache has returned, centred behind your right eye. You settle onto the chaise lounge and hold a lavender pouch to your temple, inhaling deeply until the sick feeling passes. You once found a cheap booklet cautioning ladies about a wasting disease linked to beauty products. It described trembling limbs, hair loss, and shallow breathing. You tucked it beneath your bedding and kept it a secret. The drawing on the cover looked somewhat like you, but then again, everything seems to resemble you lately. Pale, immaculate, faintly ethereal. Your attendant enters with your customary warm milk. She pauses, observing you for a second, longer than she usually does. Then she whispers, "You don't have to do this, you know." You don't reply, because you know you absolutely must. You drift off to sleep with your hands clasped together across your abdomen, like a statue. Tomorrow brings the garden gathering, a major event. You must appear radiant, glowing, just not too much. Not glowing like the departed. The morning sunlight slices through the curtains like an intruder, surprising you. You squint at the brightness and draw the fabric tighter, even though the room is already shadowed. The maid has laid out your hairpins, ribbons, and a small dish of water mixed with sharp acid. You scrutinize your reflection. It is your brow that concerns you now. Not your eyes, not your lips. Simply your forehead. Too expansive, too elevated, too expressive. In another period that might have been flattering, but today it is something to fix. The latest style drawings from across the channel display women with smooth, curved hairlines, hair pulled back into severe knots that make their foreheads appear like polished stone. Intelligent, yet pure, the periodicals declare, a distinguished look. But the simpler reality is it lengthens your profile, minimizes your facial features, making your beauty appear more contrived. You take the acid-soaked cloth and gently blot it along your hairline. The sharp bite awakens you entirely. You have been reducing your finest hairs for months, removing them here and there to achieve that perfectly receding boundary. Your maid despises this practice. She says your hair will never fully recover, miss. You acknowledge her, but you continue. The aroma of the acid mingles with the lavender scent of the hair oil, a peculiar mix of purity and deterioration. You pick up the tweezers, fine metal imported from abroad, and begin to pluck a single hair at a time. Pull, sting, pull, sting. It is steady, almost hypnotic. Each strand gone feels like a step toward perfection. You recall reading that a former queen had begun this trend centuries prior, her hairline raised to emphasize the royal contour of her face. A noble brow, they named it. You wonder if any of those ladies ever regretted it, examining their foreheads in the dim light, realizing the alteration was irreversible. Likely not. Regret is unfashionable. Your younger sister peeks into your room. You'll be late for the garden event, she advises. Her hair is still thick, unruly, falling in soft waves around her ears. You envy her momentarily, but only for a moment. She will learn soon enough. Everyone does. By the time the vehicle arrives, your scalp is tingling and your forehead faintly gleams under a sheer layer of fine powder. It captures the sun beautifully, flat, uniform, almost lifeless. You position your bonnet to perfectly frame it. No hair covering the brow, of course. That is for girls who have flaws to conceal. Outside, the day is dazzling, too dazzling. The garden is a spectacle of colour. Flowers, ribbons, pleasant sounds. You join the procession of visitors, greeting the host, a lady renowned for her smooth, unlined forehead. At 40, it is whispered she uses bloodsuckers to purify her blood. You find it credible. You would attempt it too, if you thought it would work. As you exchange pleasantries and sip a cool drink beneath the canopy, a gentle gust of air lifts your hair slightly. You feel the cool breeze against your exposed skin and shiver, not from the temperature but from something unfamiliar, the feeling of being entirely uncovered. It is exhilarating. It is terrifying. You offer a courteous smile and rearrange your hair again. Appearances must be maintained, even when your scalp feels raw. By late afternoon, the gathering has settled into a gentle quiet of conversation and sun-warmed wine. You sit in the cool shade of a climbing vine, leisurely waving your fan, the atmosphere thick with sweet scents and pretense. Across from you, an older friend leans in to admire your coiffure. So tasteful, she says. I have never seen a hairline so polished. You return a careful, composed smile that hides both pride and discomfort. The skin near your temples is still sensitive from this morning's removal, and the tight twist is pulling just enough to make your head ache. You quietly thank her. She does not need to know that your refinement came from the sting of acid, steel implements, and the silent endurance of beauty's small cruelties. A younger woman nearby, perhaps 16, shares a joke with her companions, her soft hair carelessly covering her forehead. A few years ago, that was you, oblivious, unafraid, hair loose and eyes open to the light. You catch her reflection in a silver serving piece. The way her face lights up with laughter, the way she does not yet know she should be hiding it. She will learn soon. They all do. The hostess calls everyone toward the shelter for beverages, and as you stand, a sudden movement of air catches your head covering. It nearly comes off, tugging at the fastenings holding your hair. By reflex, you reach up, pressing it down, feeling the bare line of your brow under your fingers. For a second, you worry, imagining misplaced hairs, the illusion shattered, but no one notices. You manage a light laugh, pretending it was a minor incident. The wind is quite bold today, someone jokes. You agree. You cannot afford not to laugh. Inside the shelter, reflective surfaces cover the walls. It is trendy, creating a sense of boundless space and endless elegance. Everywhere you look, another version of yourself stares back, pale, perfected, exact. The mirrors blur together, turning the attendees into a succession of flawless faces. For a brief instant, you cannot tell which one is you. You adjust your bonnet again. There, that looks right. A gentleman offers you a seat. "You possess such fine features," he remarks kindly. "A face made for paintings." You thank him, lowering your gaze, the practiced gesture of humility. Inside you can hear the faint echo of your mother's instruction. Stay still. Smile less. Keep your brow unruffled. You sip your beverage slowly, feeling the warmth against your skin. Your forehead is starting to itch. You resist the impulse to scratch it. The chatter swirls around you. Weather, formal attire, hearsay, nothing genuine. And yet you feel the slightest tremor of doubt. You wonder if anyone here remembers what their faces looked like before all this, before the fine powders and the pulling, before the constant, subtle changes to meet some invisible standard. Probably not. On your trip home that evening, you lean your head against the cushion, careful not to disturb the powder. The city outside blurs into golden streaks, gaslights flickering. Awake in the twilight, you see a glimpse of your reflection in the glass. You look composed, perfect, almost calm. But underneath the surface, you know what is absent. Not beauty, just natural softness. The part of you that once belonged to you alone. The following morning is still and quiet, shrouded in that misty city atmosphere that carries the faint scent of smoke and damp fabric. You are sitting at your vanity again, studying your mouth. It is too vividly pink, too full of life. The fine powder covers your face faultlessly, but your lips spoil the effect. Too expressive, too human. This standard of beauty does not favour women who look animated. It favours restraint. Lips must whisper, not speak plainly. Kiss, but never crave. Smile, but never broadly. Your mouth is meant to be a suggestion, not an obvious invitation. You pat it with a square of delicate fabric dampened with weakened citrus juice. The sting is sharp, cleansing, almost purifying. The colour diminishes slightly. Then you dust a trace of fine powder over them to mute the natural sheen. When you press them together, they feel parched. That is precisely right. On your dressing surface is a small container of moisturising balm made from natural wax and nut oil. You use it rarely, only when retiring. Too much shine is inappropriate. You remember your governess once saying a proper lady's lips should appear as though they have never been kissed, nor expected to be. You were 12 then. You did not understand. Now you do. Downstairs the maid softly sings while preparing the morning meal, and for a fleeting instant you yearn for her freedom to laugh, to move, to speak without caution. You have trained your own voice to be gentle, each syllable measured, each word wrapped in a subtle apology. Loudness in a woman is a form of unwanted display. You think of formal portraits again, how every lady's mouth is rendered almost identically, small, pale, expressionless. Even the ruling women look like they are holding their breath. Perhaps they are. Your acquaintance once dared to wear a tinted gloss, a blend of crushed flower petals, mixed with lanolin. It gave her lips a very faint rose colour, almost natural. People noticed. The subtle comments began before the second dance that night. Too bold, someone whispered. Unpolished, someone else implied. By the end of that social season, her chances for marriage were reduced like a flame in the rain. She never used it again. You attempt a slight smile in the mirror. It looks wrong, too noticeable. You lower your gaze, reshaping your mouth into that soft, unreadable line. Everyone expects this. That is better. No one should be able to discern your feelings. Desire is risky. Even warmth can be misinterpreted. Your mother enters, fastening her decorative pin. "Try not to speak too much today," she says distractedly. Gentlemen appreciate mystery. You nod, your mouth dry. You think about all the times you have bitten your tongue to maintain elegance. The times you wanted to laugh loudly or raise your voice or say something imperfect, but did not. You reach for your covering gloves. They hide your hands, your arms, and somehow your words too. You are realizing that beauty is not only what you reveal, it is what you suppress. You take one final look in the mirror before leaving for the midday gathering. Your face is perfect. Your lips are still. You look flawless. You look almost silent. The luncheon is hosted in a glass-enclosed garden, glass walls, hanging plants, the aroma of citrus fruit wafting from shiny fruit arrangements. You move carefully among the attendees, your lips held in that subtle upward curve, the one you have practiced in solitude, enough to appear pleasant, never enough to appear overly eager. You take your place between a respected lady and her daughter, who has just been introduced to society this season. The daughter has full lips, naturally rose-coloured, a little soft at the edges, like she has just been touched by nature itself. She looks vibrant, but she does not yet know how to hide them. As she speaks, lively, innocent, with her mouth moving in all directions, you can sense the faint discomfort building around the table. The older women do not comment, but you notice it in the way they slightly turn their heads. The men observe it too. One looks a little too long. The young girl does not seem to care. She laughs. You wince internally. She will learn. The discussion moves to literature. Someone mentions a famous poet. You nod, modestly. You know the verse by heart, but you do not repeat it. A girl who recites too much is considered pretentious. A girl who recites too little seems simple. You aim for the middle, informed but not intimidating. The host passes around sugared blossoms, delicate and pale purple, like fragile aspirations. As you lift one toward your mouth, your fingers pause. They will leave a mark. Not on your gloves, but on your lips. You wait for someone else to try first. The older lady does, consuming it carefully and blotting her lips with a cloth before they show too much colour. Clever, you follow her example. One small taste, then water, not the red wine. Wine enhances the lip colour, and today's drinking glasses are too clear to hide behind. You look around the table and note the perfection of the deception. Every woman here wears a mouth of quietude. Their lips move, but only slightly, like puppets of good manners. The real communication happens beneath the table, in the fleeting glances, in the twitch of a glove, in the delicate sound of a spoon against china. Later, in the outdoor area, you hear the young girl talking to a man. Her voice lifts with enthusiasm, and for a moment her pure happiness fills the air like a pleasant sound. You watch the way her mouth moves, wide, alive, unconstrained. It is beautiful, but you know it is temporary. Soon, someone will speak with her privately, her mother or a friend. They will suggest a less noticeable balm, a softer tone, a quieter expression. They will use terms like refined and subtle, and she will agree, not fully understanding, but enough to start the slow process of alteration. You walk past her, your expression gentle. She does not see you. She is still full of light. You remember when you were her, long ago. You realise that, in this environment, even lips are governed by rules, that too much colour is a desperate appeal for attention, that paleness is security, that silence for women like you is the first layer of protection. By the time the vehicles arrive, the sun has set, and the mirrors in the entrance hall are dimming. You pass one and see yourself, flawless, pale lips closed. A woman who has mastered the technique of being observed but never truly heard. It begins before the first meal, always the silent inspection of your figure in the glass, still confined by the waist cincture from the day before. The small anxiety that surfaces if your dress feels just a little too snug at the middle or does not fall perfectly across your hips. You breathe out slowly. Perhaps you consumed too much liquid last night, perhaps the starchy food from the bread roll. You have been taught that body size is not judged by measurements but by clothing, by hushed remarks, by the way your aunt's eyes narrow if she sees a second portion on your plate. A woman's form is not her own. It belongs to the gossip, the dance floor, the momentary observations in the hall. You once overheard a woman at church say she has grown heavier with that unique tone, neither a compliment nor an insult, but something sharpened between the two. You were 12. The words have haunted your meals ever since. Today, you select a gown designed for walking with vertical lines, which is supposed to be slimming. Your maid assists in securing the fastenings. The waistline is exactly where it should be. You can still breathe, just barely. You walk down the stairs and take your spot at the table. Toasted bread, eggs, sweet spread, and cooked grains appear. You select a small portion of toast and one cooked egg. No fat spread, no preserved fruit. You smile politely as you refuse the dairy product. Just tea today, you state, and your mother nods approvingly. No one discusses size precisely, that would be uncouth, but they discuss self-control, will of mind, small appetites. The women who consume food with evident enjoyment are noticed, and not in a good way. Appetite suggests impulsiveness, a lack of refinement, perhaps even sensuality, and so you learn to take small bites to conceal your hunger in your linen cloth and sip lukewarm tea instead. Later, during your alteration appointment, the seamstress comments that your figure has been preserved nicely. You feel a wave of relief, as though you have passed an assessment you did not prepare for. Many girls expand after the winter holidays, she adds, but you remain disciplined. You nod and pretend not to feel the slight unsteadiness in your legs. Discipline is the currency of this era's beauty standards. Not dieting, not abstinence from food. Those terms are too contemporary. But there are rules, unstated and firm as the corset supports. Move frequently, eat sparingly, chew deliberately, always look satisfied, never full. Your friend once admitted she ingested a diluted acid before meals. It lessened her desire for food. She said it tastes unpleasant, but it keeps the form trim. Another girl claimed to wrap a piece of fabric around her abdomen beneath her cincture. If it caused discomfort when she ate, she would know to stop. You offered a polite smile, though you secretly experimented with it. The next day, it proved effective. You think of your cousin who was sent away for her health after gaining weight during her first social season. They claimed she had grown fatigued, fragile nerves. But you saw the truth in the quiet shame of her departure and in the way no one mentioned her again. You return to the mirror before the afternoon refreshment. Your dress still lies flat. You inhale, then exhale. No creases, no strain. You have survived the morning. Tomorrow you will commence again. The afternoon refreshment is served at 4, and with it comes temptation disguised as sophistication. Thick cream, berry tarts, small sandwiches with the edges removed. Everything is dainty, proper, and hazardous. You sit on a firm seat near the window. Fine ceramic cup balanced perfectly between your gloved fingers, and you nod along to a lady's stories about her joint pain and her new window coverings. The tea is hot and weak, barely brewed. You sip it slowly, allowing it to ground you against the gentle appeal of the sweets on the table. A maid offers the tiered tray. You choose one small vegetable sandwich, tiny, bland, safe. Across the room, another girl reaches for a second pastry, and you observe the way her mother stiffens. A flash of disapproval passes between them like a silent shock. The pastry is returned to the tray, untouched. The conversation continues. This is the routine. No one speaks openly, but everyone is watching for missteps. Every morsel becomes symbolic. Too much and you lack control. Too little and you are being dramatic. The ideal woman consumes as she exists, gracefully and quietly and without occupying space. After the light meal, you excuse yourself and stroll in the garden to keep your muscles moving. Digestion is more acceptable when it is disguised as a need for fresh air. You traverse the stone walkway twice, posture straight, steps light. You wonder if this counts as physical activity. You hope so. You once read a foreign advice guide that suggested consuming soft fibre soaked in liquid to maintain fullness without calories. It appalled you, and yet you remembered it. You have never done that, of course, but you have chewed and expelled food once. Perhaps twice. Back in your room, the maid prepares your formal gown. The upper garment is tight, and you feel a moment of worry as she secures the final clasp. Then it closes. Relief washes over you. You light a scented candle on your dresser, allowing the fragrance to calm your thoughts. Your stomach makes a low sound in the stillness. You press your hand against it, not to comfort it, but to quiet it. There is dignity in silence, even the silence of hunger. You open your journal and note down your intake for the day. Morning meal, 1 egg, small toast slice. Midday meal, liquid soup, 1 bread roll, no fat spread. Afternoon refreshment, 1 sandwich, 3 sips of tea. Evening meal, not yet. You make a small mark beside the entry. Achievement. Outside your window, the city comes alive with flickering light, carriages, laughter, lamps. But inside it is only you, your tight waistline, and the strange contentment of being physically smaller. Because here, beauty is not determined by what you absorb. It is determined by what you reject. The fragrant oil arrives in a fine glass container, faceted crystal, delicate, almost sacred. It comes from the continent naturally, floral and resinous, the essence of a foreign city concentrated into one valuable drop. Your friend sent it as a token, wrapped in silk and enthusiasm. You admire it, but you hesitate, because personal fragrance in your social sphere is risky. Respectable women do not have a noticeable scent at all, or if they must, it should be very faint. A trace of soap, a hint of starch, perhaps a lingering memory of rosewater. Nothing stronger could pass without notice. You rotate the tiny bottle, observing how the light catches inside the clear liquid. It presents itself innocently, yet the true meaning of perfume is universally understood. It signifies vanity. It signifies reckless self-regard. It signifies moral failing. Rumour states that actresses use it, as do mistresses and foreign women. Respectable women, your mother always declared, should let their natural cleanliness be their virtue. You picture cleanliness as a soft, almost inaudible murmur, while perfume practically bellows for attention. Still, the impulse to know is too strong. You carefully lift the stopper and draw a breath. It is lovely, mellow, floral, with a slight warm spice. You press a small drop onto the inside of your wrist. It quickly intensifies against your skin, unfolding like a silent private revelation. Your maid's gaze widens momentarily as the scent reaches her. "It is exquisite, miss," she murmurs, "but perhaps only suitable for the evening hours." You agree with a brief nod. Yes, evening. The darkness makes a small act of daring easier to excuse. That night, sitting at the dinner table, you feel as though the fragrance emanates from your skin, a quiet glow. You observe your mother inhaling slightly, a discreet sniff. Your father remains silent, but he appears perplexed, as if trying to identify the unfamiliar sweetness in the atmosphere. You maintain an impassive face, every gesture perfectly composed, suggesting that absolutely nothing is wrong. Later, when the guests arrive for the evening's card games, Lady Pembroke leans in and says, "You smell heavenly, my dear." I cannot quite place the scent. Her remark is part compliment, part subtle warning. You thank her softly and immediately redirect the conversation. In the polished wood behind her, your reflection stares back. Composed, scented, and unexpectedly dangerous. There is significant power in scent. It adheres. It precedes you into a room. It refuses to be ignored. You have spent years attempting to diminish your presence, to step lightly, speak softly, and withdraw gracefully. But this fragrance, contained in a scandalous little bottle from France, forces you to acknowledge your own existence again. You move through the space, leaving a delicate impression in your wake. A few people glance over, intrigued. Others look displeased. One gentleman studies you for a moment too long. You feel a strange mix of triumph and dread. Perfume never lies. It uncovers. And tonight, for the very first time, you find you do not wish to vanish. After the last visitor departs and the cards are put away, you sit before your vanity, still enveloped in the faintest resonance of violet and amber. It persists even though the social evening is concluded, clinging to the lapel of your gown, your gloves, your neck. It has outlasted the conversation, the wine, and even your carefully maintained self-control. Your mother enters without announcing herself. She stands behind you, her image floating like a spectre in the mirror. Her eyes settle on the perfume bottle sitting on your dressing table. "So," she says quietly, "we've adopted French habits now." It is intended as a jest, but it is not truly funny. You offer a slight smile and respond, "It was a gift, you say." She takes the bottle, turns it over in her hand, and inhales briefly. Something briefly crosses her eyes. Perhaps a memory, perhaps regret. Then she places it down and walks out without another syllable. That is the way things work in this household. No direct criticism, just the meticulous act of forcing you to doubt your choices. You reach for the cold cream, ready to wipe away the evening's carefully constructed image, but the scent remains. Even as the powder dissolves onto the cloth, the perfume holds fast. It is not overpowering, it was never meant to be, but it is there, woven into your hair, resting behind your ears, lingering on your pillow. You think of the other young women, those who carry lavender sachets pinned inside their corsets or conceal citrus rind within their petticoats. They would never admit to wearing perfume, yet everyone uses something. No one wishes to permanently smell only of lye and damp masonry. Still, the risk is undeniable. Too much of a foreign scent and you are mistaken for a woman who works for a living, or worse, a woman who actively seeks attention. And desire, in your society, is the most perilous scent of all. You lie in bed, the blankets pulled up to your chin, gazing at the ceiling. You can perceive your own fragrance, not merely soap and starch. You, warm, uncertain, imperfect, and somehow it feels acceptable. It feels completely human. The next morning, the scent remains faintly on your gloves and on your hairbrush. The air in your room feels different now, softer, as if someone else resides here, someone with more freedom. But you hesitate before applying the perfume again. You still conceal the bottle beneath a linen handkerchief because you have spent too much time mastering the art of being unseen. And the greatest challenge in becoming real is permitting yourself to be observed. You find yourself standing at the apothecary's counter once more, this time considering something less scandalous but equally powerful. Cold cream, a rich white preparation kept in a heavy glass container. It is meant to soothe the skin, eliminate roughness, and reverse the damage of a long day spent under layers of powder, city grime, and social requirements. The apothecary wraps it with care in thick brown paper, securing the top with twine as if it were a treasured sweet. He makes no mention of the snail extract you inquired about last week, or the crushed pearls you asked for yesterday. He has long ago learned not to comment on the strange alchemy required for feminine maintenance. You thank him and step out onto the street, the cream warming slightly inside your gloved hand. Back at home, you set it gently on the vanity alongside your other beauty secrets. Tiny ceramic pots of thick paste, mysterious coloured liquids, a once costly French oil made from almonds, and something that has a faint odour of vinegar and disappointment. Your favourites are the ones that are never openly discussed. The snail mucin, for example, imported from some Italian region, or so the label suggests. You smooth it onto your cheeks every night, even though the texture causes a slight shiver. It seems to work, possibly. Or perhaps it is merely the belief in it that is effective, the concept that you are restoring something, rebuilding what the pressures of society strip away daily. There is also the finely ground pearl powder, so fine it seems to hang in the air like a veil of light. You mix it with a little rose water and pat it beneath your eyes to counteract the shadows. A woman from Bath insisted it cured her of fine lines around her eyes, though she rarely smiled enough to prove whether that claim was true. As you prepare for the night, you commence your routine. You wipe away the makeup, gently pat the skin until dry, then apply the cream in upward motions, exactly as the instruction manuals recommend. You whisper the steps to yourself like a simple incantation. Cold cream, snail serum, pearl dust, rose water. Your skin, completely exposed, appears unfamiliar in the mirror too. Pink in some spots, shiny in others, truly human. You remind yourself that this moment is private, the only time you truly belong only to yourself. Then the door eases open. It is your maid, holding a new jar you requested, a honey mask whispered to be favoured by actresses in Vienna. You thank her and place it out of sight behind your hairbrush box. You will try it tomorrow, completely alone, where no one can witness you, experimenting with forbidden glamour. You sometimes contemplate how much of your beauty is genuinely yours and how much is merely borrowed, scraped from shells, gathered from blooms, extracted from snails, and whether the origin truly matters. Because the fact is, no one questions the source of your glow, only that you possess it. You wake the following morning to the subdued light filtering through the window drapes and the familiar pressure of your own image awaiting you at the vanity. Your skin feels marginally smoother. Perhaps the cold cream was effective. Perhaps the snail extract seeped in overnight and whispered promises to your cells. You sit down and start the process anew. The mirror is kinder this morning. Maybe it is the subtle sheen of the pearl powder. Or maybe you have finally learned to value the illusion. You run your fingertips over your cheek, feeling the soft texture that only comes from an hour spent layering oils and masks and pastes that are not meant to be acknowledged. The rituals are private, yes, but they are not always unique. Every woman possesses her own secret formula. Some utilize clarified butter mixed with lime juice. Others swear by the tightening effect of raw egg whites. A friend of yours, quite daring, admitted to applying mashed strawberries to her elbows. You laughed when she confessed it, then attempted it yourself that same evening. There's a silent closeness to these mixtures. They are not for show, not for the attention of men, not even for your mother's approval. They are solely for you, a small essential reclaiming of the body that everyone else believes they are entitled to judge. Still, even this sanctuary is not free from judgment. Last week at Lady Breckworth's gathering, someone pointed out the unusual glow on Miss Fielding's face. Too much emollient, they decided. She must be using something artificial. The implication hung in the air like an unpleasant smell. She not only cared too deeply, but she failed to properly conceal it. That is the precarious balance you are expected to maintain, to polish yourself, but never visibly shine, to improve your appearance, but never seem to be making an effort. You glance again at the jar of cold cream. It is only half used, but you already feel a twinge of guilt for requiring it, for requiring anything. You momentarily imagine cleansing your face with only plain water and nothing else, allowing the imperfections to show, letting your natural skin simply exist. But you know you will not, certainly not today, because tonight there is a dinner engagement. A prospective suitor will be present. Your mother has already highlighted his name on her social calendar with more ink than was necessary. You will need to look rested, soft, and completely untouched, so you reach for the jar again. The lid feels cool against your fingertips. You apply it with extreme gentleness, slowly, like performing a secret charm. In the mirror, your reflection watches, quiet and obliging, and beneath that careful layer of moisturizer, pearl dust and powder, you sense the presence of the real you. Asleep, waiting, smothered beneath the layers of continuous effort. But beautiful, always beautiful. You sense it before you actually see it, that faint creeping heat in your cheeks that no amount of foundation can completely hide. You are flushing again, not from any sort of romantic feeling or compliment, but from something far less poetic. Your monthly cycle has begun. In this society, this is never to be mentioned, not even to your closest companions. The quiet, inherent rhythms of the body must be concealed like dirt under a parlour rug. Everyone is aware of its existence, but no one dares to look directly. You excuse yourself from the breakfast table and withdraw to your room, pressing a cold, damp cloth to your cheeks. The warmth persists. Worse, a faint redness is creeping up your neck, a betrayal of both expected modesty and perfect skin tone. You reach for your rouge. Yes, rouge. Not to deepen the colour, but to manage it, to smooth it into a uniform hue. If you must appear flushed, it will be by your own design. Your rouge is subtle, made from crushed geranium petals and a trace of raspberry vinegar. It has a slight fragrance of flowers and self-discipline. You dab a light application onto each cheek, blending it with meticulous care. Not too high, or you will appear feverish. Not too low, or you will look sunburned. Rouge is considered dangerous, but so is naturalness. It strikes you how many women consciously manufacture the things their bodies already provide naturally. Rosy cheeks, dewy eyes, warm skin, and then immediately conceal the real thing when it arrives, uninvited. Your governess once cautioned that rosy cheeks suggest vitality, but an excess of colour makes you appear vulgar. You were 14 then, already learning the fine distinction of artifice. Later, at your embroidery circle, you feel the eyes of the room shift toward you, not with ill will, but with a slight curious interest. You are looking particularly well today, someone comments. Healthy. You murmur your thanks. Your heart accelerating. You want to burst out laughing. If they only knew. Beneath your restrictive corset, your abdomen is cramping, tender and tightly knotted. Your linen undergarments are silently doing their job, absorbing the clear evidence of your womanhood. Another truth you must pretend does not exist. You recall the old stories, how women who were menstruating were once thought capable of spoiling mirrors and causing milk to curdle. You were strictly told never to touch the pickles in the cellar during those days. Even now you wonder if your skin is aware, if your body is giving off some undetectable signal that you cannot completely mask. You sip your tea slowly, one hand holds the china cup, the other beneath the table tightly grips your handkerchief. Outside the sky is heavy, low and swollen with rain. You imagine lying down beneath it, simply letting the ache take its course. But you cannot. You are required to remain upright, attentive and composed. You are a young woman in silent combat with her own biological makeup, and the touch of rouge is your defence. By the time you return home, the aching has settled in, deep and low, like a heavy ancient presence stirring beneath your stays. You long for nothing more than to lie down, but company is expected for supper. Your mother insists you change into a different dress. You look a little too pale, she observes, completely missing the irony. You have spent the entire day attempting to appear exactly that. Back in your room, you reapply a minimal amount of rouge to your cheeks, just enough to counteract the dull fatigue now settling into your features. You also press your fingertips to your lips, wondering if they require a touch of colour as well. You hesitate, recalling yesterday's admonition about restraint, and instead rub a small amount of rose petals between your palms, then gently press them against your mouth. A natural glow, a softly whispered deception. The subtle fragrance rises faintly toward your nose. You find yourself inhaling deeply, not for the scent itself, but for the brief, comforting illusion of rest. In the closet, you bypass the white muslin dress. It is too risky for tonight. Instead, you select the soft grey gown, the one with the dark sash that rests strategically just above your abdomen. It is safer, more forgiving, intentionally unassuming. As you dress, you move deliberately, cautious of every step, every movement. Every inch of you feels like temporary borrowed space. Your own body has become unfamiliar again, more insistent, more vitally alive, and therefore more of a threat. You wonder, not for the first time, if any of the gentlemen at supper tonight have the slightest comprehension of what is quietly occurring beneath the long tablecloths and rustling silk. Probably not. They will praise your posture, your clear complexion, your self-control with the dessert course. They will never know that every single compliment is resting on a delicate foundation of discomfort. At the dinner table, the conversation eventually turns to health and the season's minor ailments. Someone speaks of laudanum with the casual authority of a man who has never experienced true pain. You stir your soup quietly and concentrate on maintaining a pleasant expression, even as the dull pressure in your lower back builds with the steady force of a small, angry tide. You look at the other women seated at the table. Are they too maintaining a pretense? Are their cheeks pink from careful application of rouge or from actual heat, discomfort, or pain? Is every single smile held in place by fragile threads of intense effort and rigid etiquette? It seems likely. You once found a discreet pamphlet that mentioned some women use leeches to restore the balance of their humours during their monthly cycle. It was printed in minuscule font and you burned it immediately after reading, but the image remained with you. This strange idea that even nature itself needed to be corrected. The soup is pleasantly warm, the soft candlelight is flattering, and you manage to get through the entire meal without a single crack appearing in your carefully constructed mask. Later, in bed, you curl onto your side and press a heated stone against your lower abdomen. The pain is quieter now, manageable. Your rouge has long since faded, and in the darkness, you allow your face to simply relax. No more colour, no more control. Just you, flushed, aching, and completely still. Beautiful even when there is no one present to see it. It is raining outside, a soft, continuous, utterly respectable rain that taps gently against the window panes and makes the drawing room feel even more contained than usual. You sit perfectly still, your hands gloved and folded neatly in your lap, while your aunt lectures the seamstress about the virtues of restraint in all decoration. No one desires a young lady who resembles a piece of furniture, she declares. You nod in agreement because it is the expected response, but your eyes drift to the small silver tray on the side table where a necklace lies, waiting, a present from your cousin. Delicate gold wirework with a single deep red garnet at its centre. Not excessive, certainly not vulgar, but perhaps a touch too noticeable. You are not wearing it because jewellery in your social world is a separate language entirely, and it speaks far more loudly than anyone is willing to admit. A diamond signifies wealth, but too many diamonds implies vanity. A simple string of pearls is considered tasteful, unless the pearls are too big, too glossy, too proudly displayed. Bright colours are generally discouraged unless they are old, inherited rubies. Emeralds are risky. Any bluestone is even riskier. The safest jewellery is that which seems to have been added by complete accident. You remember a winter ball once, where a girl wore sapphires that sparkled like frozen water. Everyone whispered, not because her appearance was improper, but because she looked too affluent, too self-assured. Her necklace entered the room a full minute before she did. That is the true risk. You get up from your chair and move toward the window, where your reflection dimly awaits in the glass. No earrings today. A narrow, simple brooch, no bracelets. That is sufficient. The objective is to subtly enhance, never to draw attention away from yourself. The real victory is for people to admire you, not your accessories, as if you possess a natural inner shimmer. Still, you recall the first time you ever wore genuine jewellery. You were 13. It was a birthday gift. A tiny locket on a chain, so fine it almost vanished against your collarbone. You stood in front of the mirror for hours, tilting your head, imagining how it would catch the light. You felt older, more significant, genuinely beautiful. Now you apply beauty with more meticulous planning. You understand the boundaries. Today, for example, the garnet would be permissible. It perfectly matches the wine-coloured velvet trim on your sleeves, but absolutely no rings. Too suggestive. No dangling earrings. Too foreign. Even the way a piece is worn carries weight. A necklace that appears too tight hints at a desperate desire to please. Too loose, and it suggests carelessness. You adjust your brooch, perfectly centred, but not obviously flaunted. There. Your mother enters the room and briefly assesses your attire. She says nothing, but her gaze briefly rests on the garnet you opted not to wear. You understand her perfectly. A slight pause, a small nod, silent approval of your choice. So you leave it resting on the tray. True beauty here is not about external decoration. It is about knowing the precise moment to completely disappear. Later that afternoon, you are called upon unexpectedly. A family from Sussex is visiting the city and they have called for tea without notice, which is typical behaviour for people who claim to disdain impressions, while secretly hoping to catch you unprepared. You descend the staircase with great care. Your gown is flawless. Your hair is perfectly pinned. Your expression is polite and pleasant. Your gloves are on, your tiny shoes are clean, and your jewellery is minimal. Only the brooch. Mrs. Halberton, the matriarch, is perched like a sleek cat that has consumed something valuable. Her eyes quickly evaluate you. Neck, ears, wrists. You feel her calculating your value. Her own daughter, Lillian, is wearing a heavy necklace of seed pearls strung in 3 loops and a sapphire pin so substantial it is almost theatrical. Her cheeks are a bit too red, her dress a touch too elaborate for a daytime call. Mrs. Halberton offers a sugary smile and says, "It is so refreshing to see a young woman who does not feel compelled to wear all of her possessions at once." It is intended as a compliment, but it is also a direct warning. You smile back politely. "The weather today simply did not warrant diamonds," you respond. A soft, appreciative titter follows. Your mother's teacup clinks approvingly against the saucer. You have won this subtle round because in this world beauty is a game of careful strategy. Each decision, how much lace, how few rings, how tight the curls, transmits a specific message. And jewellery, despite all its sparkle, must never, ever overshadow the illusion of being naturally flawless. The moment you appear to have put in effort, you have failed. Lillian looks down, fiddling with her sleeve, her cheeks deepening in colour. You almost feel sorry for her. Almost. After the guests depart, your mother mentions that discretion will always be more powerful than display. "Let your dress speak," she instructs. "Let your face speak. Jewellery should only ever whisper." But you wonder quietly why you are constantly required to be so silent. That evening, you sit by the light of a single candle and open the small velvet pouch where your garnet necklace lies. It gleams dully in the low light. Patient. You lift it to your neck just to feel the weight of the metal. It is heavier than you recalled. You fasten the delicate clasp, not for a lavish ball, not for a potential caller, not for anyone else, but simply to observe. And in the mirror, for the first time in days, you do not look merely pleasant or modest or perfectly correct. You look striking, not loud, but completely undeniable. And for a single precious moment you permit yourself to shine. Your little boots are too tight. They are always too tight if you were to be completely honest. But this particular pair, made of soft black leather with a line of shiny pearl buttons and a neatly pointed toe, has been exceptionally cruel since the first fitting. You wore them anyway, naturally, because in this society, footwear is not required to be comfortable. It is required to speak for you, and what it communicates is everything. You sit on the edge of the chaise lounge and press your fingers against the sides of your ankle as your maid fastens each tiny loop. The final three require a holding of breath. "Thank you," you whisper as she finally straightens, even though your largest toe is already going numb. The boots are exquisite, slender, elegant, and absolutely impossible to walk in. Perfect. Your gown drapes down to the floor. Of course, no one is actually meant to see your feet, but that is not the point. What truly matters is the way you must move. Small, very delicate steps. Never a confident stride, never a heavy stomp. The sound of a heel striking the polished parquet must be like a heartbeat. Faint, feminine, utterly refined. You once saw a girl in the market running across the cobblestones, without shoes. Her soles were black with dirt, her movements were wild and free. You were both appalled and secretly a little envious. She moved as if she completely owned her own body. You, by contrast, move like a statue mounted on a rolling pedestal. The boots influence you in ways beyond just appearance. They force you to pause before moving, to glide rather than walk, to hesitate. You have learned to time your arrivals and departures around the throbbing pain in your toes. You have even mastered the art of smiling while remaining perfectly seated, just long enough for no one to suspect you are doing it to avoid standing up. You reach for your gloves and parasol, preparing for your visit to the music tutor across town. He is completely unaware that every note of your pianoforte practice is punctuated by the dull throb of forming blisters, that you sit up straighter, not for proper posture, but because leaning forward shifts the weight onto your aching arches. Outside, the pavement is slick from last night's rain. You must step with extreme caution to avoid slipping, but caution is your greatest skill. Another woman might choose thicker heels, but heavier heels are meant for housekeepers or country relatives. You are neither. The boots clearly state this. Your friend Cecilia once admitted that she pads the toe of her left boot with wool. Not for comfort, but to make it match the right, which had been permanently distorted by a painful bunion. She chuckled when she told you, then immediately pressed her lips tight. "I would prefer to suffer in silence," she whispered, "than wear anything made of rubber." And so you proceed slowly down the street, one tiny perfect step after another. Your walking is graceful. Your physical pain is entirely hidden, and no one would ever suspect that beneath your gown, your toenails are bruised. By the time you arrive at the music tutor's imposing house, the tops of your feet are throbbing with heat. You have already practiced precisely how you will sit. Ankles crossed, the left foot tucked just slightly behind the right to conceal the awkward bend of your cramped toes. You have done this countless times. Inside, the tutor greets you with a slight bow and a weary expression. He is kind and thankfully brief with his compliments. "You play with such composure," he remarks as you ease yourself onto the piano bench. He has no idea that most of that composure is entirely due to pain management. Your boots remain on, of course. To remove them would not only be highly improper, it would be utterly impossible. The buttons are too tight. Your feet have swollen against the internal seams. You press the piano pedals using only your heel, deliberately avoiding the front of your foot, which now feels like it has developed a secondary, painful heartbeat. The music still flows flawlessly. You mastered the art of outward performance long ago. Despite the deep discomfort, your hands glide with grace. Your back remains straight. The melodic notes rise and fall with practiced elegance, and no one notices your calf muscle twitching each time you shift your weight to briefly relieve the pressure. Afterward, you thank him with a gentle smile and step back into the hallway and back into the relentless boots. The walk home feels significantly longer than you remember. The left boot chafes with every single step. The right one has begun to subtly tear at the seam, but you dare not replace them yet. They were incredibly expensive. More importantly, they're extremely flattering. They make your ankles appear more slender, your walk more refined. You cannot afford to trade that precious appearance for something as trivial as physical comfort. Back in your room, you close the door and finally collapse onto the chaise. You suppress a groan as your maid carefully unbuttons each loop. The tight leather gives a small sigh as it finally releases. You sigh too. Your silk stockings are damp with moisture. The skin underneath is red and visibly inflamed. Blisters have begun to form along your pinky toes. The nail on your second toe is darkening. Still, you fold the boots gently, wrap them in tissue paper, and return them to their designated box. They are not damaged. You are. Later, as you soak your feet in a basin of lavender-scented water, you think about how rarely any of this is ever discussed. Feet are forbidden territory. You can expose your raw, personal soul more easily than you can bare your feet. No one wants to imagine the dark bruises beneath the extravagant ball gown, and yet every woman you know shares this very same quiet truth. That beauty, in its most convincing form, begins at the very tips of the toes, where the physical pain is most intense and the mandated silence is loudest. You apply soothing ointment to the raw spots, wrap each toe like a delicate secret, and slide into your soft evening slippers. They are slightly better. You manage a smile, not because they feel wonderful, but because they hurt just a little bit less. You first noticed the single grey hair 2 mornings ago, tucked quietly along your hair part like a misplaced piece of thread. It reflected the light differently, a cooler, sharper gleam. You stared at it for far longer than you should have, long enough that your tea grew cold and your maid skillfully pretended not to notice your focus. Now it is all you can think about. At 17, a grey hair is an anomaly. At 24, it is a clear warning, a reminder that your time is finite and rapidly diminishing. You sit at your vanity today with the heavy realization that every single strand of hair counts. Your mother once informed you that one grey hair can completely ruin an entire social season. You believed her then. You believe her still. The small box of dye sits unopened on your dressing table. It is labelled discreetly, chestnut tonic. The detailed instructions are written out in a flowing, practised script, intended to look more like a recipe for tea than a shameful confession. No one ever admits to altering their hair colour. They use vague phrases like natural radiance or hereditary rich tone. They attribute the colour to special cold rinses and superior genetics. But you have seen the reality in your cousin's medicine cabinet. Bottles of walnut solution, black ink, henna powder, and something labelled burnt clove rinse. She once stated she would sooner drink actual poison than let her fiancé see her with grey hair. You believed her as well. You lift the lid and open the small bottle. The scent is sharp, earthy, with a metallic bitter edge like tea that has been steeping far too long. Your maid has the gloves, the protective cloth, and the comb ready. She has performed this task before, for your mother, for your aunt, and even for herself. She says nothing, only holds the small mirror at the precise, necessary angle. As the dark dye settles onto your scalp, you feel a heat. Not exactly pain, but more like a strong warmth, as if the vanity itself is passing judgment. You consider the rare women who allow their grey hair to grow out naturally. They are few, incredibly brave, and frequently unmarried. Those who visibly show their age are either too wealthy to be concerned or too impoverished to bother hiding it. You fall into neither category. The silent clock ticks. The die takes hold. You sit absolutely still, as if any movement might somehow cause the truth to spring back to the surface. Finally, your maid wipes the last dark traces from your forehead. The roots are now dark again, glossy, perfectly uniform. You appear young, not merely young, but unnaturally preserved, like a fruit kept too long in heavy syrup. You smile into the mirror, but the expression does not quite reach your eyes because you know this is merely a temporary solution. Grey hair is only the first physical betrayal. That night, the praises surfaced predictably. "You seem so invigorated," someone noted at the table, their gaze tracing your hairline. "You must have found time to rest." You offered your thanks naturally. A smile came easily. You angled your head slightly to catch the ambient light, sensing the familiar internal conflict, a strange merging of achievement and being overlooked that always trailed a convincing pretense. Nobody could perceive the gloves your maid wore earlier that morning. No one detected the harsh metallic clove odour on your scalp. They simply registered youth, or what they chose to interpret as youth. In this society, appearances dominate everything. Following dinner, you joined the women in the reception room. The fireplace crackled and the tea was sweetened just right. The talk drifted across recent fashions, upcoming opera engagements, and, inevitably, the freshest gossip. "She's really let her hair go," one woman whispered, referencing a duchess slightly over 40, streaks of grey and white, visible right at the temples. How daring, truly. Or perhaps she has simply resigned herself. They all assented, murmuring disapprovingly. You sat in quiet composure, your freshly darkened hair pinned smoothly behind your ears. You briefly envisioned reaching up, releasing it completely, revealing the single silver thread that initiated all this effort. You wondered what reaction they would offer. Brave, perhaps foolish, maybe honest. But of course, you remained still, understanding the fate of women who acknowledge their age openly. They become negligible, or they turn into subjects of ridicule. There is no other option. You recalled your grandmother's hands, etched with lines, comforting and constantly occupied with some task. She had undyed silver hair. You cherished it then, but then again, you were a child. Children are permitted to appreciate what society has not yet judged. Now, your affections are guarded secrets. For the night, you secured your hair in a silk wrap to preserve the fresh tint. Your maid delicately braided it, and you noticed her quick survey of your temples. "It took nicely," she murmured. You gave a brief nod. It had. Yet your scalp retained a faint heat, and you knew the colour would eventually diminish. In just a fortnight, the original roots would resurface once more, subtle yet challenging. You would be prepared. You would repeat the colouring. Because in this existence, beauty requires not only initial effort, but constant renewal. The instant you discontinue this repetition, like a vow, like a ceremony, you begin to fade away. The hour is early, still dim outdoors. You have not yet changed into your daytime clothing. The daily rituals are already commencing. Your maid has just signalled for warm water. The hearth is being ignited. The kettle emits a soft hiss, and arranged on your dressing table, like specialised instruments, is everything needed for your morning transformation. This is the aspect no one speaks of, because the preliminary routine of a woman in this era is neither delicate nor indulgent. It is labour. Silent, perpetual labour disguised as sophistication. First, the starch for the shirt cuffs. The linen must be firm enough to stand upright like a sentinel, yet soft enough to fold at the neck without leaving marks. You have learned to discern the precise balance by smell alone. Too much, and you will carry the odour of laundry powder all day. Too little, and the cloth will lose its crispness before midday meal. Next, the steam. Your face is suspended over a fine bowl filled with soothing chamomile and rose petals. The heat ascends in gentle plumes that widen your pores and cloud your vision. You close your eyes, inhaling the comforting warmth. This is the nearest you will come to a genuine rest today. Third, the chilled water. You press a cold cloth against your cheeks to recontract the pores, tightening the dermal layer. It stings sharply, but your former governess swore it was the key to appearing vibrant yet remote. You wonder if she maintains the practice wherever her life has taken her. Married to some lesser nobleman, or perhaps interred beneath a marker that makes no mention of her flawless skin. Then comes the cosmetic paste, a dense blend of mineral chalk, zinc oxide, and a small amount of floral water. You spread it across your face as one prepares a surface for paint. It doesn't merely obscure imperfections, it eliminates individuality. The objective is not to resemble your own self, but to mirror every other well-bred woman present. Pale, composed, balanced. While the preparation settles, you proceed with the body treatment. You massage your arms and legs with a nutrient-rich almond milk lotion, being meticulous not to neglect the joints of the elbows or knees. No one is ever meant to see those parts, of course, but the thought of them being rough is intolerable. Beneath your stockings, you put on your foundational layer, a silk slip, pristine and newly ironed. Then the supportive pads, then the undergarments, then the layers of petticoats, and finally the rigid corset. By the time your maid fastens the final cord, you have been active for nearly 60 minutes and have not uttered a sound. This pervasive quiet is integral to the entire presentation. The morning hours are not for casual conversation. They are dedicated to becoming, to careful assembly, to layering yourself into social visibility. And lastly, once the entire structure is complete, you sit still and constrained and commence painting the ultimate face that the world will encounter. The woman who emerges from this long ritual is attractive, but she is also like an apparition, a construction made of stiff fabric and pigment, hot mist and profound silence. And the world will admire her, even if you, deep within, feel a complete disconnect from her existence. The meal signal rings out. Time for breakfast. By the time you start your descent down the main staircase, your physical form no longer seems entirely yours. It now belongs entirely to the exterior gown, to the decorative lace at your wrists, the snug high collar around your neck, the sheer heaviness of the ornate pin securing everything. Every component of you has been secured, polished, restricted and silenced. Your movements resemble an art piece granted temporary life. Your immediate family is seated quietly at the extended table. The gentlemen already carry the aromas of pipe tobacco and printing ink. The ladies, your mother and your aunt, are crisp, immaculate, and utterly unreadable. You position yourself in your assigned chair and unfold your linen napkin, an instinctive gesture. Your expression remains serene. Your back does not touch the chair support. Your fingers rest delicately above the fine tableware. No one explicitly states that you look lovely this morning. That would be too forthright. Instead, your father observes you are presenting yourself with greater composure this period. A compliment cleverly veiled as a moral appraisal. You offer a small smile. You have been conditioned to accept such praise as a matter of obligation, not of genuine pleasure. As you lightly spread butter on a piece of toasted bread, your stays press painfully into your rib cage. You adjust your posture subtly, ensuring you do not draw focus. Your maid tightened the corset more firmly this morning, anticipating the need for a riding outfit. You did not confirm plans to ride, but it makes no difference. The required figure must be maintained. A slight metallic sound disrupts the quiet atmosphere. Your cousin accidentally drops her fork. Every gaze turns toward her. She flushes crimson instantly. Deeply embarrassed, you immediately look away. Out of basic good manners, yes, but also from a place of deep understanding. You have been in that exact position. You know you will be again. After the morning meal, you retire to the parlour with your embroidery. This activity, too, forms an essential part of the morning regimen. Not only the careful preparation of the physical self, but the controlled deportment. Sit perfectly straight, speak in muted tones, express amusement only with your eyes. Even moments of rest must be rigidly managed. A nearby acquaintance arrives with her daughter, a girl of 16 who has not yet mastered the full morning transformation. Her hair is slightly dishevelled, her garment sleeves a fraction too long. But worst of all, she is flushed, radiant with an unburdened youth, and entirely unaware of the inherent risk in that presentation. The older women engage in polite conversation, all the while critically observing her, noting the untamed quality, the lack of effort, the underlying threat she poses. You watch silently and feel a flicker of recollection. You were once like her, before the routines, before the necessary facades, and you ponder if someone had intercepted you then. If someone had advised, do not begin this practice, would you have heeded them? Most likely not, because no one desires to be the girl who stands out for incorrect reasons. No one wants to be the singular person without rich cold cream or restrictively tight undergarments or footwear that causes your feet to go numb. Beauty here is not synonymous with physical ease. It is defined by rigid adherence. It is not a source of happiness. It is a serious undertaking. And this morning, exactly like every morning prior, you have successfully reported for duty, perfectly punctual. You are standing before a polished surface again, but this time it is not your own. You have come to visit your cousin in the fashionable Knightsbridge district, and her private room is filled with peculiar small bottles acquired from faraway locations. The air carries a scent not of familiar floral water or starch, but something warmer, more profound, like dried wood chips, like strong cooking spices. She has always possessed a distinct character. Her father had long been stationed overseas, and her wardrobe contains touches of silk textiles from India, elaborate bone hairpins from Ceylon, and delicate netting that does not conform to the established English patterns. Her skin, though still light, has an underlying golden hue that your mother calls regrettable. You personally find it rather exquisite. She shows you a new cosmetic powder she acquired from a pharmaceutical specialist in Paris. Finely pulverized water lily petal combined with fine pearl pigment, and something she discreetly mentions is borrowed from distant Asian cultures. You inquire what that exactly entails, but she merely offers a slight movement of her shoulders. Everyone is borrowing from somewhere now, she remarks casually. She speaks the truth. You have become aware of the gradual introduction of unconventional beauty secrets into the drawing rooms of the socially elite. Milled rice powder, fragrant oils of jasmine, pigments of crushed shell for colour, even liquid tinctures of bright yellow root. The women procure them furtively and apply them in complete privacy, but they all ultimately desire the same result. An alluring radiance, without ever visually resembling the foreign source. You observe your cousin applying the light powder to the curve of her temples. It catches the artificial light slightly, not excessively shimmering, merely subtly illuminating. Her prominent facial structure is beautifully enhanced by it. You hesitate briefly, then request a small amount to try. She smiles and gently dabs it onto your skin. It releases a subtle fragrance of rose petals and something unfamiliar, earthier, more concentrated. As you gaze into her looking glass, you feel a slight sense of unfamiliarity with your own face. There is a newfound softness to your appearance, a vital warmth that your typical pasty white application never provided. It feels like a small act of insubordination, but the feeling quickly passes because you understand you cannot wear it to the evening meal, not in your family residence, not under your mother's scrutiny. You quickly remove it with a piece of silk fabric and select your usual cleansing rosewater instead. Your cousin watches your actions and says nothing, but she does not remove her own application. At the dinner gathering, she is seated across from you, clearly luminous, not in a controversial way, not aggressively, just noticeably different, and you see how the other attendees observe it. Aunt Judith peers at her with mild confusion. Lady Weatherby whispers something privately behind her folded fan, but no one offers an outright comment because even in this setting, even among the stringent requirements of society beauty, the influence of the wider world has left an unmistakable mark. They are simply reluctant to acknowledge it openly. You consume your thin soup quietly, your cheeks dusted perfectly pale, while your cousin emits a glow like a subject from a fine painting, part dream, part glimpse of the future. And for the first time you grasp that this rigid beauty standard you have worked so tirelessly to maintain was never entirely authentic to your culture in the first place. Later that same night, well after the dinner service has concluded, you find yourself once more sitting near your cousin. this time in her softly illuminated private room, with one curtain partially drawn and the air dense with the aroma of exotic warming oils. Heated slightly on her light sauce, you ask her softly, "Where exactly did you obtain that cosmetic powder?" She smiles warmly and opens a small storage drawer filled with various unusual objects, delicately carved wooden hair combs, fragrant silk packets, small glass containers labelled in unfamiliar characters. The majority of it came from my childhood caretaker, she confides, while we were in Bombay. You gently touch one of the small vessels. It smells distinctly of spice and a note you cannot accurately identify. She notices your brief moment of hesitation. You are concerned about whether it is acceptable. You do not challenge her observation because in your social sphere, personal presentation is strictly controlled, and true foreignness, visible, undeniable foreignness, is consistently relegated to the fringes. The exotic is intriguing in printed magazines, yet potentially damaging in the social setting. Still, there is a distinct excitement in the thought of deviating from the established norm, utilising an ingredient not listed in the standard guides, something that has not been diluted and bleached to conform to English ideals, a perfume that makes no apologies, a subtle tint that refuses to vanish into a powdery whiteness. But alongside that excitement, there is a definite risk. You recall the young women who embrace these imported styles too thoroughly, wearing vibrant silk garments, deeply coloured eye makeup, unusual concentrated spices applied behind their earlobes. They quickly become novelties, subjects of discussion, dismissed, occasionally desired, but always kept at a social distance. You cannot afford such notoriety, not when your social season is still uncertain, not when your mother continues to assess your face like a detailed ledger of social standing. So you simply admire the various containers, ask polite, detached questions, and apply a very small amount of concentrated oil to your wrist, just enough to carry its lingering scent back in your glove, just enough to preserve the memory. Before finally retiring, you sit at your cousin's dressing table one more time. The moonlight barely illuminates the mirror's edge as she thoughtfully brushes out your hair, a familiar activity from your childhood. Her touch is careful yet strong. When she finishes, she gathers your hair over your shoulders and states quietly, "You would truly suit that eye makeup." You believe her statement, but you do not verbalize it. Instead, you secure your sleeping gown, extinguish the small lamp, and go back to your assigned guest chamber, where your familiar floral water, starch powder, and pale pigment remain safely positioned, quintessentially English. As you settle beneath the bed linen, you catch a faint trace of exotic spice on your skin, and there in the dark, with no one observing, you allow the scent to remain. You are awakened by the sound of rainfall again, not the expected gentle sprinkle of a typical London morning, but a forceful, relentless downpour. It strikes the window panes like countless eager tapping fingers, as if attempting to breach the exterior walls of the dwelling and reveal what lies hidden inside. You slowly move into a sitting position, noticing the residual tension in your back from the previous day's tight lacing. The full-length mirror stands waiting, as it perpetually does, directly opposite your bed. The customary preparation items are neatly arranged beneath it. Pigment, various brushes, binding garments, securing pins. You could execute the entire procedure almost without thinking now. In many respects, you do exactly that. But today, the anticipation feels heavier. You rise, walk across the room, and sit at the vanity area. In the mirror's reflection, you do not immediately recognize your own features. Not due to any visible imperfection, not because of exhaustion, but because the young woman looking back at you, composed, carefully powdered, flawlessly still, feels more like a sculpted form than a living individual. You reach for the moisturizing cream, then stop your hand. The surrounding quiet extends. Your hand moves instead to your scalp. You gently run your fingers through your hair, not to prepare it for styling, but as if to awaken some feeling within. The shaped curls have flattened overnight. A few strands fall stubbornly onto your forehead. You decide to leave them there. You glance down at your clothing, then at the constricting garment, hanging like an unresolved query from its support hook. You feel the slightest suggestion of defiance, not outspoken, not foolhardy, but enough to make you consider what would be the consequence if I simply chose not to tighten it today. Not because you intend to abandon the concept of beauty, but because you are suddenly struck by how much time has passed since you inhabited your own physical form without exterior protection. You remember all the numerous mornings you have meticulously painted your skin into smooth ceramic, muted your genuine voice, concealed your lips, suffocated your natural scent, restricted your feet, caused slight internal discomfort, erased all natural coloration, forcibly removed fine silver hairs around your hairline and merely referred to it all as routine. You have maintained the performance for so long that you have lost all memory of your unadorned appearance. Without the illumination, the pigment, the finishing polish, and perhaps more significantly, you have forgotten the sensation. You reach for the window latch and push it open slightly. Cool, moist air rushes inward, stimulating and refreshing. You take a deep inhalation. Your skin reacts with a slight tingling sensation. For once, you do not pull away. Your attendant knocks gently. 10 minutes until dressing time, miss. You hesitate momentarily. Then you speak softly, "Thank you," and remain completely still. Because just for this one morning, you desire to sit exactly as you are, without the necessary facial colouring, without the anxiety of judgment. Simply you. The rigid corset remains hanging on its hook. The soft powder puff lies undisturbed, and in this rare moment, you realise the entire external world has not ceased to function. The house still emits the low sound of distant movements. Someone is already preparing bread in the lower kitchen. A vehicle passes outside on the road. Time continues its steady progress, completely unaffected by whether or not you have starched your collar or subdued your natural hair texture. You run your fingers lightly over your face, thoughtfully, curiously. Your skin feels soft, warmer than its usual temperature, still inherently yours, still clearly alive, and for the first time in many years you experience no immediate pressure to conceal it. You look at the unopened box of cosmetic powder and reflect on everything it has historically guaranteed you. Fairness, sophisticated demeanour, social acceptance, but also quiet submission, a form of eradication, a personal identity meticulously refined to fit a very restricted definition, a face designed to please everyone else except your own self. You stand up slowly, move toward the clothing storage, and lightly touch your elegant gown. It is undeniably beautiful. Of course it is, but today it feels distinctly like a theatrical costume, like a role you have been executing for such a long duration that you forgot there was originally a written script. Your hand withdraws. Instead, you put on your loose dressing robe and wrap it snugly around your waist. No restrictive corset, no restrictive footwear. You walk to the window area and lean your forehead lightly against the smooth, cold glass. Raindrops accumulate against the pane. The sky above is heavy with moisture, but not threatening. You observe the scene below. A small child jumps freely over water puddles, his outer coat moving wildly. His sheer delight is inappropriate, messy, and liberating. You manage a smile. It is not a careful, demure smile, not one practiced for display, but an entirely genuine one. You do not intend to abandon the standards of beauty entirely. You do not formally renounce the use of powder or delicate scent. You acknowledge the world in which you are required to function. You know the exact demands it imposes. But you also realize that a standard of beauty founded on self-denial is ultimately a confinement. And today, you located the means of escape. Somewhere behind you, your attendant knocks again, this time slightly louder. "Miss." You look at your reflected image one final time, still naturally pale, still imperfectly human, still fundamentally attractive, but this time on your own individual terms. You turn toward the chamber door and state, with a tone that surprises even your own ears, "I will prepare in a few minutes." And when you finally do make your appearance, it will not be for the purpose of dissolving into the background. It will be for the purpose of taking your place. And now, as the rainfall diminishes and the exterior sky transitions into a calm, late afternoon grey, you inhale a little more deeply. You have navigated through layers of powder and tight lacing, through dangerous compounds and misleading artificial illumination. You have experienced the sharp extremes of vanity and the quiet fatigue of rigid self-control. You have witnessed the sheer effort required to embody the specific kind of beauty the world publicly endorses, precise, silent, unnaturally stiff, and how frequently that precise kind of beauty was achieved at the sacrifice of normal breathing, natural comfort, and your own identity. But here, in this complete stillness, you permit all those external expectations to simply fall away. There is no mirror currently, no intricate fasteners to secure, no waistline to painfully measure. Just the soft, consistent sound of residual rain on the window glass, the inherent warmth of your own skin beneath the simple robe, and the faint, lingering aroma of comforting floral water clinging to your resting pillow.